The meeting of the Finance Committee to order on April 16th, 2025. Mr. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Alderman Thibodeau? Here. Clerk is here. Alderman Moran?
Here.
Alderwoman Timmons?
Here.
Alderman Clemmons?
Here.
Alderman Clayton?
Here.
Mayor Donches?
Here. Thank you. Public comment. Is there any member of the public who would like to speak to the committee on any of the agenda items? And there's no one here, so I think the answer to that is no. Communications. First communication from Amy Gerard, Purchasing Manager, Alderman Govea.
In regard to contract for biodiesel fuel in the amount of $52,860 funded from FTA grant funds, 61 supplies and materials. I'm going to move to accept, place on file, and award a contract for FY26 biodiesel fuel for National Transit at the rate of $2.6430 per gallon to Sprague Operating Resources in the amount of $52,860. Funding will be through Department 186 Transportation Fund, FTA Grant Funds, 61 Supplies and Materials.
Mr. Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Mayor. Will be the community development show tonight, I fear, so buckle up for hopefully a brief conversation on each of these items. This is an annual contract coming before you for biodiesel, again this year, in fact, with Sprague, as it's been with the last few years. But luckily this year, actually at a lower rate from what was $3.07 a gallon down to 2.64 cents a gallon. For all of the biodiesel the National Transit System uses in a few of its vehicles, and you'll hear about other vehicles throughout the course of the night. This is a one-year contract, and we essentially, again, we renew it on an annual basis, and the rate has gone down. So fortunately, there'll be a good impact to the budget. I'm happy to answer any questions, but I think you recall hearing about this just last year.
Anyone? All right, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next communication from Amy Gerard, Purchasing Manager, Alderman Govea.
In regard to Library Plaza reconstruction, project management services in the amount not to exceed $150,000, funded from capital funding, 53 professional and technical services. I move to accept, place on file, and approve a contract for project management and oversight for the Library Plaza reconstruction project with IMEG, formerly Hayner and Swanson, in the amount not to exceed $150,000. Funding will be through Department 181 Community Development Fund, capital funding, 53 professional and technical services.
Committee members, Matt Sullivan, Community Development Director. This is a not-to-exceed contract for $150,000 for what I would refer to as quasi-owner's project manager services for the Library Plaza reconstruction project. We're actually not titling it OPM services because that has a very specific technical and legal import. But essentially, Hayner Swanson, now IMEG, will provide the overall general sort of I'll say day-to-day oversight of the Library Plaza reconstruction work, which I'll note is just about at 100% design and about to go out to bid over the coming months. So we're very, very excited about that. We're now at a point in the process we're about to bring on board a contractor or contractors. And I'll tell you very honestly, that's not my expertise. And as the person who's primarily overseeing the project, I'm not able to provide the day-to-day support to it. And so just like we've done for the riverfront, in fact, we're bringing in someone to provide those project management services so that the workers are doing what they're supposed to do, so that technical reports are being reviewed by the right people. This is really critical for making sure the project is sort of the classic on time, on budget in the context of the total $4.5 million project budget. I'll just note that this is a not to exceed. We think this $150,000 is just about right. And I'll finally say that part of the reason we selected IMEG and Hayner Swanson is because they're providing these very same services just across Main Street as part of the riverfront build out. And so they're uniquely qualified based on their experience in the area. And we actually hope that their oversight of the construction project will happen just after the work is wrapped up on the riverfront. So we'll literally be taking their services there, moving them across Main Street to oversee the library reconstruction work. And so with that, I'm happy to answer any questions about the specifics of this, but very excited to finally be getting underway with the project.
Alderman Clemmons.
Thank you. Can you remind me of the breakdown of the funding for the entire project?
Sure. Happy to, Alderman Clemmons and committee members. The project is made up of two primary sources, one being $3 million that was received as part of a congressionally directed spending request, which we believe to be fully in place. We've been corresponding regularly with the federal government. And the other $1.5 million was actually sourced via what I'll call de-ARPAtized ARPA funds that were allocated to this project 2 years ago, in fact. That $1.5 million came into the project. That's actually the money we've been spending to date. We haven't yet cut into the federal dollars for a variety of different reasons, but those are the two sources.
Go ahead.
So the money for this contract in front of us, that's coming from the ARPA money?
That is correct, yes.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you. Of course.
Anyone else? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion passes. Next communication from Amy Gerard, Purchasing Manager, Alderman Govea.
In regard to amendment number 1 for the Library Plaza asbestos coordination bid process in the amount of $11,606, funded from capital funding 53 professional and technical services. I move to accept, place on file, and approve amendment number 1 to Sanborn Head and Associates, contractor for additional coordination relative to the asbestos handling and the ADS work plan implementation for the Library Plaza in the amount of $11,606. Funding will be through Department 181 Community Development Fund, Capital Funding 53 Professional and Technical Services.
Committee members, Matt Sullivan, Community Development Director. We're still on the same project for this request. This is related to the library reconstruction project. You may remember about a year ago, I came to the committee requesting a contract with Sanborn Head to provide a scope of services that included asbestos sampling on the Library Plaza site, and also, in the event that we discovered asbestos, the development of what's required by the state of New Hampshire, which is an ADS, or asbestos disposal site work plan. So essentially, in the event that we find asbestos or in various quantities, the state requires us to have a plan about how those materials are going to be handled, how the material is capped on site, and because it's a hazardous substance, that the right people are actually doing the work. And so Sanborn Head completed that scope. We have a voluminous ADS work plan that's been approved by the state of New Hampshire and is going to be part of our bid package. Now that we're entering the sort of the bid document phase, we've finished the scope that existed with Sanborn Head. And so what's before you is an $11,000 approximately scope to have Sanborn Head actually attend some of the bid meetings to aid in the preparation of the bid documents with some of our other consultants, and then to just be ready for the pre-bid meeting that will happen on site so that they can answer technical questions about the asbestos that we found. And so that scope is limited just to that $11,000. And it's possible that Sanborn Head's scope could expand when we get into the construction phase, because that ADS work plan requires certain professional testing. And so that'll be an item for a later time, but I just wanted to give the full scope of what the services entail.
Alderwoman Clee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I remember correctly, based on the history of Nashua and the asbestos dumping that's gone throughout all kinds of builds and things like that, we were pretty certain that we were going to find it. So it was kind of a no-brainer that it was going to be there and so on. And based on the samplings, do we feel that there's quite a bit there, and that, so this 11,000 is just as a, it's just them to help guide those that are bidding to know the scope of what they really feel is down there based on the sampling. It's not, this is not the removal process, so that the people understand that it's going to be a lot more than $11,000 to remove and to contain and to move that. Is that correct?
So I'll respond to Alderwoman Clee's question. The answer to the last point you were making is maybe. I can't say for certain that it will be more expensive than this $11,000, because our goal is to have what we call a cut-fill plan for the site, where we're able to, if we find asbestos, move it to areas where it can be appropriately capped. I mean, we're fortunate in the sense that asbestos is not like PCBs or other more volatile chemicals that need to be removed and trucked and brought to the appropriate site. We can safely cap asbestos, and fortunately or unfortunately, the city has a significant history of doing it. And so what we've done, in fact, is we've identified several hot spots of asbestos where we think there's going to be concentrations. Through the sampling, we found there were areas that we really don't think there will be asbestos. We can still find it. It will all be consolidated into a few areas that have designed to be a little higher than the other areas on site. We will cap that. We'll put geotextile fabric. We'll put clean fill above it, and it will be totally safe unless someone digs down multiple feet and starts eating the dirt, which we hope doesn't happen. But Sanborn Head's scope for this is exactly what you said. It's literally just guiding potential bidders to understand the extent of contamination and what qualifications they need on their contracting team to bring to the project as a result of maybe finding asbestos on site.
Thank you for that clarification.
Sure.
I appreciate it.
I'm all set with that answer.
Anyone else? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. Motion passes. Next communication from Amy Gerard, Purchasing Manager, Alderman Govea.
In regard to FY26 compressed natural gas in the amount not to exceed $460,314, funded from general fund and FTA grants, 61 supplies and materials. I move to accept, place on file, and approve a amended contract with AVSG for compressed natural gas, CNG, at the rate of 2.699 per gallon in the amount not to exceed $460,314. Funding will be through Department 130, Purchasing Department, Fund General Fund, and FTA grants, 61 supplies and materials.
Matt Sullivan, Community Development Director. This is an extension or renewal of a contract with AVSG, who also owns the facility over at 11 Riverside, where we fuel really two fleets of vehicles. One are refuse trucks or trash trucks that are almost exclusively CNG run, and then a significant portion of our bus fleet as well. I'll also just add that through your work at the Finance Committee approving additional vans for our transit service, we are going to be bringing on board some CNG-fueled vans as well over the coming 2 years. So the need for this facility will increase. In fact, the 2.699 that the clerk referred to is the same price we've had in place for 2 years. This is the third year of this pricing, so very stable. We have a long-term contractual relationship with AVSG. You'll note that it's within the request, there's sort of a funding split. Of the total $460,000 or thereabouts being requested, about $232,000 is the Transit Department, and about $228,000 is the DPW. So we use generally the same amounts of fuel for both fleets. I will just note, because I have a few minutes here, I promised I'd be done in 15, some of the members of the committee, but I'll just note for the record that we are very much pushing for fuel diversification in the transit system. So you've heard me come before this group to ask for unleaded vehicles, to ask for biodiesel vehicles, to ask for CNG vehicles. You may even hear about an electric van at some point in the future. There's a lot of reasons that we're doing that, but part of the big reason is that we have had some challenges with some of our CNG fueling over recent years, and when those systems are impacted, we have no ability to fill our trash trucks. We have no ability to fill some of our transit buses. We're working to build the reliability of the existing systems that we have in place. But I just want to point out the criticality of fuel diversity, and you'll see different requests coming from both the transit system, and I expect other agencies within the city as well for that very reason. With that, happy to answer any questions that the committee has.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
New business resolutions, ordinances. We have none. Table in committee, there's nothing.
Yes.
Record of expenditures, Alderman Govea.
I move that the Finance Committee has compiled with the city charter and ordinances pertaining to the record of expenditures for the period of March 28, 2025 to April 10, 2025.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. All right, general discussion. I wanted to mention to the committee that because vehicles come before us, vehicle purchases and purchases of many different things, we asked Amy Gerard, Purchasing Manager, to look at the SURF list particularly to see if there's anything we should bring forward quickly in order to try to avoid tariff impact. We don't know, we'll find out. But not only could tariffs affect vehicles, but a lot of other things. I did hear an economist make the common sense argument that tariffs on foreign vehicles are likely to raise the cost on American vehicles as well, because similar vehicles go for similar prices. So if you're shopping for a Toyota Camry and a Malibu Chevy, and the Camry goes up 25%, the Camry might go up 20. And just because, why shouldn't GM make the profit if they're selling a similar vehicle? So anyway, this could impact these purchases, so Amy's going to check this out and see if there's anything that can be done to reduce the impact of any of this. And thank you very much for, she's just started, so she doesn't have any right now. Alderman Clemmons.
Thank you, Mayor, and that's a very proactive approach to some of these things coming down to us, so I really appreciate that, and I want to thank Amy as well for researching that and seeing what we can do. But you're absolutely right about the prices going up on everything because we live in a free market system. So the idea that just because something is made in the United States, that the price would stay down, if you were, as long as you were cheaper than the competitor, right, you would raise your price just above that. I mean, that's just economics, that's the free market system, which is why things like tariffs don't work and they meddle with the economy instead of trying to really promote the economy. So anyway, I appreciate the proactive approach, and I look forward to having a conversation in the future.
Alderwoman Clee.
Thank you. I want to echo both your words and my colleagues' words, and I also want to make note that in addition to all of that, there are oftentimes parts and engines of American-made cars that are foreign cars. I once rented a Chevy Nova and opened it up, and it said Toyota across the engine. So, it was a Toyota engine, but it was a nice American car, right? So we can't fool ourselves by thinking American-made is American-made. Very few American-made really is American-made. It's not even manufactured necessarily here. We're lucky if it's put together here, so. It will be affected by the tariffs, so I'm glad to see that, Mr. Mayor, that yourself and Mr. Gerard are being proactive and bringing this information to us. Thank you.
Alderwoman Timmons.
Thank you. Mayor, I have one question. Maybe you can or cannot answer. How secure is our fleet now? I mean, are we good for the next couple of years, or what do you see coming down the line?
Well, are we secure? Not really. I mean, in the sense that there are replacements scheduled every year. Now, sometimes when sometimes, a vehicle will last another year or two, but sometimes when you try to make that happen, it doesn't turn out very well, and the vehicle is broken down, and the out of service and the repairs and everything cost more than add additional costs that wouldn't be there for a new vehicle. I do remember, this is before anyone here, but when Morris Arell came in as mayor, the city couldn't even plow the streets. I mean, the equipment was so bad they couldn't put out plows. I remember the ruts in front of City Hall were like 6 inches deep. I mean, they just basically could not function. And obviously, things are much, much, much better now with everything that's occurred since, all of the administrations and Lisa Photo and everybody has worked to make sure that doesn't happen. But that is the risk of saving money by putting off purchases. Yes, Alderman
Yeah,
Clemens.
just a response to that, I mean, the risk of putting off purchases is what we saw the other night at the full Board of Aldermen meeting. We had a we were purchasing a vehicle that was very expensive. I think it was, I'm forgetting the exact price, but around $70,000. And
68, I believe.
yeah, and they were, you know, we were trying to extend the life of a vehicle, right? Probably because we thought that, or the school department thought, hey, you know, this is gonna save taxpayers money, we're gonna get more life out of this van, and they did. But now it's at its end, and what's happened in those preceding years is that the price of the vehicle that it costs to replace it has gone up exponentially from like 45,000 to 68,000. So did we save anything? No, we didn't. And so the argument, of course, and some voted one way, some voted the other, and it's a matter of opinion, but the argument was, well, if we don't do it now, then we could be in a similar situation where it's even more expensive later down the line, right? Than the $68,000 that it is now. So my suggestion is always we have schedules for a reason. We have replacements for a reason. And the reason that we do that is because it moderates the price, and it moderates everything. So it moderates the price of the replacement vehicle, but it also moderates the price of the repairs, the amount of time that it's, you know, able to be on the street as opposed to in the garage being fixed. I mean, these things are all done for a reason, and that's the reason why. And when you don't do it and you deviate from that, you see situations like we saw the other night.
Alderwoman Timmons.
Thank you, Mayor. So would it behoove us to move up the rotation of some of these vehicles?
Well, that's what we're going to look at.
That's what, yeah,
That's
that's
what-
what Amy is doing now, okay. All right,
So
Bless
the
you.
point is it makes sense to move forward
okay.
any purchases to avoid additional costs.
Okay.
Tariffs, taxes, whatever. All right, anyone else? Alderman Thibodeau.
As part of that exercise, are we looking at requoting as well? Or getting actual quotes for, I know that was brought up.
I believe the
in one of
answer to that is yes.
Okay.
So. All right, anyone
Thank you.
else? Alderman Moran.
Just would it behoove us to have like I know we already have an ordinance that buys local. Should we also be focusing on just sourcing internally in the country versus externally?
Well, I don't know. As I recall the ordinance locally, it says that if the purchase is less than 10,000 and the bid is within 3%, we go with the local option. Isn't that the ordinance? But can you come up here so?
Amy Gerard, Purchasing Manager. I don't remember the exact verbiage of it off the top of my head, but there is a percentage clause if it's less than a certain dollar amount. If it's over that dollar amount, then it's a smaller percentage for Nashua ordinance. I'd be happy.
But that's to a Nashua bidder as opposed to, I mean, you could have something similar, I suppose. I mean, the balance was, do we want to pay more money? That's why there's do we want to pay more money? Does the city want to put out more money to benefit a local business? And that's why there is the cap on the application of the ordinance, so that the additional cost would be limited by the cap.
Thank you.
But that could be done, I suppose, for U.S. goods as well. It's just the same, the same judgment. Do we want to pay more? Do we not? How much extra should we pay to make it a truly American purchase? And that's a judgment that would need to be made. Yes.
I'm
Alderman
just going to
Clemens.
state, whenever this gets brought up, I don't like that ordinance. I haven't brought anything forward to change it, but I don't like that ordinance, and I'm going to give you the premise why. So it sounds nice. It sounds nice like, hey, you're buying local, right? But it could be 3% higher than what the lowest bidder is. And my argument to that is the local bidder should be trying to give Nashua the best deal that it can at the lowest price because it's their city. And so you can look at that from both ways. And so I wasn't on the board at the time, but I probably would have opposed it for that reason. Haven't felt the need to bring it up because I don't think it comes up that often, but when it does, it irritates me.
And this is the argument, this is why the cap was put on. This is why the cap was put on, that argument, that why, should the taxpayers really be paying extra? Alderman Govea.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think to go back to the general point of the conversation of looking at the surf schedule, and if there's anything we could bump up, I think that's a fair exercise. I think we should actually always be doing it. We see on a lot of surf purchases, it's interchanged. We take some vehicles out, we replace it with other vehicles. I think that's good. And if there's a way that, as long as we're staying within the budget we have, yeah, let's get the vehicles we need. And if we have kind of the insight that something is about to go way up in price, then yeah, let's buy now, and let's just adjust the strategy to make it beneficial to the taxpayers, because the surf schedule does work. I am a fan of the surf schedule. When you run stuff to the ground, it gets way more costly trying to fix it than just replacing it all on a regular routine. So I think it's definitely the way to go, and I would be very interested to see what we kind of see from the findings of that.
Yes, Mr. Ryan.
Yes, Amy Gerard, Purchasing Manager. I just quickly pulled up the ordinance. It is a local preference that does not apply to a bid more than 105% of the lowest qualified bid if the lowest qualified bid is less than $10,000, or more than 103% of the lowest qualified bid if the lowest qualified bid is $10,000 or more.
Okay,
So
so
it's
it
either
goes,
3 or 5.
it goes up infinitely with a 3%.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's what it reads now. All right, anyone else? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Oh, sorry.
I was like, what?
I was just testing it. I was just testing the clerk to see if he was on the ball there. All right.
I was thinking about the final one.
Public comment, none because there's no one here. Remarks by Alderman. I don't see anything, so I will look to Vice Chair Klee.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to motion for adjournment.
All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.